And we're live. Welcome. It's Friday. It's still light out. Summer has begun. It's kind of cloudy and humid and sticky on Cape Cod because naturally that's the way it goes. Welcome to the Without a Map live stream series for the In My Footsteps podcast. This is number 17. So I've done these, I was going to say 17 weeks in a row, but I missed one. That's right. But this is the 17th live stream I've done in conjunction with the podcast. And for all of you that have watched them before, you know I start off talking about the podcast and then we zig one way and then it goes off the rails. I plan on that happening again this week. I'm going to try my best to get a lot of the podcast talking out there to start, just in case I forget and we get way off track, because God knows it always happens. I get friends and family in the chat, like Rachel I see in the chat. Don't worry, I don't see you, I see that you're in the chat. The reason I say that is I have had friends, when I shout them out, when I see their name pop up, they think that I can like see them through their phone, which I don't know. But for those of you that have never tuned into one of these, they go in conjunction with the In My Footsteps podcast. And so what that is, it's a collection. So this is the latest episode, 26. And the podcast is more New England centric. We're talking travel and history, but then I also divulge into lifestyle, a lot of 80s and 90s nostalgia and fun stuff like that. It's a diverse podcast. I try to have something for everyone so that even if you don't like history, which I'm actually starting to scale back a little, even if you don't like that, there's something else you'll like. For example, last week, episode 25, I started the top 5 countdowns, which they're just random topics. I've got a list of tons of just random top 5s to kind of create discussion among listeners. And the top 5 lists are going to be in no particular order. So basically, it's enough to have 5 random things. So in episode 25, it was the top 5 Cape Cod icons, meaning places you should go and visit if you've never been to Cape Cod, and even if you live here your whole life. That ended up being the Cape Cod Canal, the Cape Cod Rail Trail, the National Seashore, the Brewster Flats, and the Pilgrim Monument. They don't go in any particular order. I make a list of as many things as I can think of, 15, 20, and I start to gradually chip away at them. So for example, next week, episode 27 is the top 5 lighthouses that I have visited. And I'll tell you, that was a hard one. I had 20 because it had to be places off Cape, because it's easy to get to lighthouses on Cape Cod. I could drive 15 minutes and be at a lighthouse. So it had to be more of a travel thing. But even then, I had to really think about the ones that I really enjoyed. So I had honorable mentions will be on episode 27. But the Cape Cod Coliseum episode of the podcast, I call it a bonus episode. Oh yeah, Rachel, Sandy Hook Lighthouse is on my list. I had thought about going to see that. In 2019, I did a road trip all around the East Coast. 2,100 miles in 6 days I drove. And when it got to the 6th day, I just was so tired and wanted to get home. And I drove basically right past where I could have gone to it. But that'll be at some point. But the Coliseum, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Cape Cod, or maybe you're younger and you see the warehouse part of the Coliseum that it is now, essentially from 1972 to 1984, it was the premier entertainment destination on Cape Cod, and it was located on White's Path in South Yarmouth. Basically like a nothing road that ran along the highway. It still runs along the highway. But it was so busy. The building inside the actual place where the concerts would be, you could fit over 6,000 people, and you had every big name band in the 70s and early 80s played there. I mean, we're talking Kiss, Tom Petty, ZZ Top, Van Halen, and then Def Leppard, Santana. It's wild because growing up on Cape Cod, I think I went to see Sesame Street on Ice. That's my only memory of it. But for those that are younger and don't remember it, it's crazy to think that big name artists came there. Like you'll get at the Cape Cod Melody Tent, which is now the big one. It's been around since 1950, but the Melody Tent, even then, like you'll get a couple of big name acts, and this is not meant to degrade any of the acts that show up, but it's usually the tier below, if that makes sense. Anytime you get a big name artist coming to the Cape, it's always like, wow, really? That person's coming to Cape Cod? But with the Coliseum, it was a no-brainer. And if you go to, I believe it's setlist.fm, you can find all of the concerts that played at the Coliseum. So that's talked about in episode 26 of the podcast. It went up yesterday. You can find it anywhere you get your podcast. Apple, Spotify, Pandora. And this one, like I said, it's a bonus episode. So to explain it for those that have never heard me say it, I was doing 3 weeks on and 1 week off. So 3 full-length podcasts and then skip a week. What ended up happening was I have a certain amount of minutes that I'm allowed with my plan for the hosting site. And I was noticing I was having minutes left over, and they don't roll over. So I was like, God, I'm wasting these minutes. Even if it's 20 to 25 minutes, I could make a condensed podcast about one topic. And that's what I've started doing now. So this is the bonus one. I did an episode about mental health last month for Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'm trying to think, I did another one before that. Oh, it was an episode dedicated to my grandfather who passed away 2 years ago. So it's one topic for the whole thing. So the Coliseum is the whole topic. And we go over the concerts, the Cape Cod Cubs hockey team, the professional wrestling that used to be there, all that good stuff. Coming up next week is episode 27, and this one will be a good one too. I always promote it like it's the best one ever, and I try to put a lot of detail into them, but the listeners have to be the judge. The feedback I get kind of helps me decide which way to go. That's why the top 5 list started to cannibalize the This Week in History that I had been doing, because I noticed a lot more people aren't as big a fan of history as I am. So I'm trying to take a little of that out so that I don't lose listeners. But so for next week, the big talking point is the history of the Benny's stores. So if you're not from southern New England, this might not make any sense whatsoever. So Benny's was a retail chain. There at their peak, I think there was 31 or 32 stores in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. They had everything in there. It was, they had tires and automotive stuff because Benny's started off as an automotive type store. And it's got sporting goods, fishing gear, housewares, toys, bikes. So it's neat to go through that. We had one on Cape Cod in Dennisport, and I remember going in there. You could go and get anything you needed, and it would be cheaper than driving up to, for us, Hyannis and the Cape Cod Mall. That's like the hub of Cape Cod for places to go. But they closed down in 2017. They all went out of business. I believe the Benny's in Dennisport is now Big Lots, which, it's a similar sort of offshoot to what Benny's was. So we're going to talk about that, the history of Benny's. Hi, Emma. My niece Emma is now in the chat. For anyone that sees this later, because it goes up on IGTV and YouTube after, you will not be able to see the chat that comes up. So for you that see it after the fact, basically it's going to be like me talking, looking down to nothing being there. But I swear there's people in the chat. So, like I said, we're going to do top 5 lighthouses that I have visited. I'm going to do a fun one about, for video game lovers, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Sega CD console that came out in 1992. It was, I think, at least one of the first consoles that had CD games, so you could fit a lot more onto them, and they were way more in depth. They had like full length movie style games. Sega Saturn, God, I remember that. The Sega CD, oh, it was a flash in the pan that didn't do that well. I wanted it because it had WWF Rage in the Cage game. It had 20 wrestlers and you could fight in a cage. And my buddy John, he got Sega CD and didn't like it. So he sold it to me. And that's how I got mine. Because God knows it bombed. It was out of production within 3.5 years. That it was just like, no good. Because you got the better consoles. PlayStation came out in 95, so it kind of made Sega CD obsolete. And we'll do a road trip to Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, so it's the smallest town that I've featured on the podcast. I think its area is less than 2 square miles, but I wanted to talk about it because A, it's a big seaside resort town, and B, my great-grandparents had a donut shop there in the 1940s and 50s, so it's fun to kind of tie my history in with the place. And at some point I'll get to go up there and see if I can find where the donut shop was. But it was Sullivan's Donuts, just like my grandfather had down on Cape Cod. For anyone that lived on the Cape in the 70s and 80s. He had a donut shop in Hyannis. If you're not familiar with it, I was trying to explain it to a friend of mine who he lives in LA, and he moved out there right after college. So he hasn't lived on Cape Cod in over 20 years. So trying to explain to him where things were and where they are for someone that hasn't seen these roads really for 20 years, it's like talking to someone that's never been here. So I said, my grandfather's donut shop was on Bursa's Way in Hyannis, and he's like question mark over his head. The one interesting new thing about episode 27 of the podcast is it's the first one I really recorded in one sitting. What I'd been doing is recording segments. So I might do the Benny segment or the Hampton Beach road trip, record it when you got time, and at the end you stitch it together like a quilt. And it's pretty seamless. For those that have listened, I bet you couldn't even tell that I didn't record it all at once. For episode 27, I decided to see how it was to just start with the intro and record all the way through to the end. And I mean, it took a little while, like 3 hours to record and edit and then, finish it off. But you'll have to let me know if you listen to episode 27 dropping on Thursday, if it sounds any different. I don't think it will. And if you're not a subscriber on YouTube, I'm about to upload a new 4K New England video. So I do a lot of travel videos, 4K New England, because the camera that I bought a year and a half ago, real nice camera, it does 4K videos. And it's nice, you go to these places around New England and do the 4K video, it's like you're there. And I really enjoy sharing that with people. Especially it was last year, it was great because COVID was so bad that the 4K videos, it was like you could watch them and it was like you were there even if you were stuck inside. Now it's still fun, but people can actually go there. So Oliver Mill Park in Middleborough, it's right off of Route 44 for those of you that know the area. It was a colonial era mill. So grist mill, sawmill, there's a herring run there. And this in the photo, that's part of one of the mills that's left there. It's like a skeleton of the walls. And so it's neat. You can walk around the herring run and there's picnic tables. But it's a cool little spot. It's kind of out of the way. And a lot, like if you're on Route 44, you're driving pretty fast going past it. So I think a lot of people don't even see it. So I hope I shed a little light on it. But the funny thing was, I recorded the video on Sunday. So basically, what I did was try to leave Cape Cod on a Sunday. And I will tell you, this area down here is more packed this summer already than I remember seeing it in so long because everyone's getting back out. So it should only take, from where I live, it should take 45 minutes, I believe, to get to the Oliver Mill Park. And it was well over an hour and a half to get there. I was on the highway, could see the traffic slowing down, so I got off at the next exit. I was going to take the back roads, and those were backed up. It's like you might as well just stay down here. It's like you can't escape. But by the time I got near the bridges, I was so aggravated. I said, I'm going there and getting that video if it kills me. So that was fun. That'll be going up on YouTube likely tomorrow or Sunday. But if it's going to be nice this weekend, you can go up there and check it out yourself. Then the video will be obsolete. So today, for those of you that don't know, I have my 6th book came out a month ago, and it's Iconic Hotels and Motels of Cape Cod. Because of the way things still are, where libraries, some of them aren't open, bookstores, it's weird. Some things are open, some things are kind of lagging behind. So when I scheduled my book events for libraries and bookstores throughout the summer, they're Zoom events. Hopefully they'll change, but I had my first one today, and it was the Centerville Library. So it was a Zoom presentation, and it went all right. It's weird though, because for those of you that haven't ever used Zoom, you've got yourself, and depending on the way it's set up, you can see around you. It's like the Brady Bunch. You've got a bunch of different boxes with the people that are there. The problem was, in order to share my presentation, I had to do screen share. So I couldn't see anyone who was in there, and they were all muted. So basically, we started the presentation where the head librarian announced me, and then pop, I put up my presentation, and it's like this, like I was chatting to nobody. But the difference was, here I can at least see people coming into the chat. With that, it was silent, and I couldn't tell if anyone was even there. So that was weird. And after about a half hour, my voice started going, so I was getting raspy and shouting. I said, God, this is going off the rails. But hopefully the next one will go better. I've got 2 next month with the Falmouth Library. One for my historic restaurants book, and then another one for Cape Cod Nights and Iconic Hotels and Motels. And the only catch is that with the Falmouth Library, they want you to talk mainly Falmouth stuff. And because these books, the bottom 3 there, I made everything that's in there, I kind of spread it throughout the Cape so that I wouldn't be showing too much bias towards any town. So I'm going to be eliminating 75-80% of what's in the book. I don't know that much about old Falmouth restaurants. That's why I fluffed it up with other towns. But we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, Iconic Hotels and Motels of Cape Cod, that is available anywhere you get books. I mean, you can get it on Amazon naturally. It's through the History Press. That's a branch of Arcadia Publishing. And if you're on Cape Cod, it's in any bookstore. And now I've got 6, so they should have a section for me. But who knows? I don't think they will. But in addition to all those books, I'm working on 2 more books right now. One of them is a photography book. And the irony is, they came to me, the publisher, and they had 3 potential book ideas. And they said, hey, you want to work on one or all of these books? And I said, God, I can't do 3 books at once. So I picked the photography book. And I've got a lot of nice photos. It's going to be a Cape Cod piece where it'll be mainly photos. But if I bunch together a lot of photos of, let's just say like the Bass River Bridge, which is, I wouldn't put that in there because it's falling apart. But I'd have pictures of the bridge and then below it, like a blurb about what it is. It should be good. The problem is I haven't gotten a contract from the publisher yet. So with all of my other books, all 6 of them, the publisher sent me a contract to sign, basically so that I would do it. Like they thought that if they didn't send me a contract, I would just say forget it and not do it. But with this one, I haven't gotten one yet. And I reached out to the publisher and I said, I'm not going to start putting a book together until I have a contract, because it works both ways. I'm not going to spend months putting a book together and then there's no contract. And they're like, oh, sorry, you've wasted your time. But photography book's easy. It's literally, you could do it in any town. Think of places that you know about the town where you live that might be lesser known. And you go and pop a bunch of photos of a bunch of places and then write a little bit about them. I say a lot about writing books and doing podcasts, even doing this live stream. Anyone can do it. You just have to have the time, basically. So yeah, we'll see about that. The second book, so it's semi-secret because I don't have I'm working on a book. It's narrative nonfiction, which is a true story told in kind of like a narrative way, if that makes sense. So it's almost like you're writing a story, but it's real life. So lucky for me, I have access to the people that this story would be about. So anytime I have a question, I'm just like, hey, what is this? Or what did you think about that? Because if you're doing narrative nonfiction, there's a lot of room to get stuff wrong. Just imagine thinking about some famous story that you know in history, that you know pretty well, and imagine writing it and thinking about the potential you could have to get facts wrong. That's what I have to worry about. But I'm working on my pitches because I have to find an agent. I have to pitch the book to an agent, which I'm not used to having to do. So once I get that all set, then I can really share it. Right now I'm writing a book in secret that I'm excited about, but I can't talk about that much. And I'll get people that are like, well, why do you talk about it if you can't share it? And I'm like, well, I'd rather share exciting news that's kind of secret than the people that I see on social media that post like, oh, please pray for me. And they don't tell you anything about it. And it's like, no, I'd rather be like, I got something great coming up than, oh, life sucks. So that's why I'm doing that. Yeah, it's true. Every history book in school, because who was there to see, the American Revolution? You're going basically on what people were like passing down. It's like the telephone game. You tell one fact at one end, and by the time it gets to the other, it's totally different than what you what you were told. Yeah, there's a lot of oars in the water, I guess you could say, when it comes to life in general. And I found that, especially on a day like today where stress level can go up because there's a lot of uncertainty. And, I don't like to get too deep into like bad news. Like I've been living in the same place for 11 years and now I'm in the market for a new place to live. So that's kind of stressful in all, honesty, to be like secure where you are for so long and now it's like, well, I think I kind of want to go somewhere else and now I actually have to do it. Luckily I have until the end of October, but still that can put some stress on you. Plus I just started a new job as a personal trainer at a chiropractor's office and it's taken forever to actually get in there. Like I had to do watching videos on how they run their operation. And then I got done with all the videos and then the boss was like, "Oh, by the way, I'm going on vacation next week, so we'll start you in there in 2 weeks." So it's like you wait and you wait. And I'm working on my medical fitness specialist certification. Long story short, it will allow me to train people with chronic conditions. So we're talking about anything from people that have had cancer and chemo to people with diabetes to people that have had complications from smoking, heart issues, even depression. Because as a trainer, I've been doing it for 5.5 years. And I started to see as I've trained people, the ones that I really have the most fun with and the best feelings about when I get done are the ones that are older and it makes them fireworks going off right down the street. If you hear that, it's not gunshots, it's fireworks. I guess I better get used to that. If anyone out there has dogs, make sure you give them some Xanax or something before 4th of July weekend comes up. But what I found with when you have a lot on your plate and then you get something else dumped on it and it kind of throws it everywhere, it's best to make a list, kind of. I'm a visual learner, so that kind of dialed it back where it's like things aren't so bad. It can get stressful. I've found with the new book that is secret and the training job and all that. And I don't know if it's just me or if others have it where you get in your own head and instead of saying, this is a great opportunity that I deserve, you start thinking, oh, how am I going to screw this up? So that's something that I've been trying to get into a better mindset of, as far as these opportunities come to you for a reason. You deserve them, take advantage of them and see where they take you, rather than, oh man, this book I'm working on could be the biggest thing I've worked on in my career. How am I going to screw it up? You can't do that. And I have to tell myself that, because otherwise it's like you end up like stress eating, which, meatball subs aren't bad, but that's what I had today. And that's good as a trainer to eat something like that for stress. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm looking at. I made the joke that the beginning of 2021 and the end of 2021, the only thing that will be the same from beginning to end is my name. And even that's up in the air. Who knows? I'm going to end up with a different job, different place to live, things like that. It's crazy. So it's nervous excitement. I've contacted some people that I know in the real estate game to see if they can find me something to tide me over. Who knows? As that comes along, I will share that with you too. But yeah, 2021 is a big changing year. I started off, I took a job in a retirement home, and the intention was to work part-time at the retirement home, part-time doing in-home personal training. And within a week or so of starting the new job, COVID hit, so I couldn't train anyone in home. And the retirement home I was working at so the kitchen part is terrible. It should be closed down, honestly. But I was glad that I got out of there, so the rest of the place is pretty good, but I'm not going to name names because I've been good where I haven't spoken too much about specifics in there. I'll just say that the people that lead that kitchen have no knowledge of any culinary arts, and it's the most toxic work environment I had ever been a part of. I quit that job without another job waiting and in a pandemic. That's how bad it was. I said I'd rather just dive off the cliff than, continue working with people like that. So I guess some of it's my own doing, where now I'm starting a new job and it's like, oh man, what a crazy time. So before I start to wrap things up, I want to give some shouts to some local businesses that, if you are on Cape Cod, they've all got websites so you can visit them. But if you're on Cape Cod, you can actually go to their places. So Laura and Tony's Gourmet Kitchen in Eastham, it's on Route 6, basically right across from the Wellfleet Drive-In. They just reopened on June 17th, and it's like the best breakfast on Cape Cod. Before the pandemic, they would do buffet. I don't know if they're still doing it like that, because I don't know if buffets are going to go the way of the dodo bird, where they're not around as much anymore, worrying about germs and stuff. But definitely go and check them out, Laura and Tony's. And then another great place that I just finally got to is the Rail in Orleans. It's named the Rail for surfing, which I finally figured out. I thought it was like rail, like either trains, or rail, like the rail trail for the bike path, but it's not. They've got excellent breakfast and lunch. They're on the way towards Nauset Beach, so that's another one. You can go and visit their website. And I always promote my sister Kate's clothing, apparel, accessory company, Wear Your Wish. They're at wearyourwishes.com. She is doing a second relaunch. So she launched the end of February. Everything went so well that she basically sold out of everything and said, all right, I'm going to close up shop for a few weeks, restock, then reopen, but then introduce a lot more stuff. So she's got jewelry, bracelets, necklaces. See, I'm trying to do this without a map, means I don't have any notes. So I'm trying to think of the products, because we did a photo shoot a few weeks ago. If you go to her page, Wear Your Wish on Instagram, and you see any photos of the products, those are ones I took. So if you like them, great. If not, don't tell me. But there's mermaid bracelets. There's bracelets, intention bracelets. There's an awesome 4-leaf clover one for our grandfather. And she's worked so hard, and she bet on herself to get this company off the ground. I've known about it since September. So to see it doing so well, that makes me happy. Because you want to know, not just for my sister, but for people in general, anyone that sees this, for myself, you want to know that if you're passionate about something and you put the hard work in, that it will pay off. You kind of want, it's no fun to write a bunch of books and they, you get published and they don't do well, or doing this podcast and your downloads aren't where you'd hope they'd be. So it's nice to see success, and it makes you want to keep pushing on. So check her out. And obviously check out episode 26 of the podcast. Went up on Thursday. All about the Cape Cod Coliseum. That's a good one. And every episode, the regular length ones are about 50 minutes. And they've got a bunch of different stuff. It's like a quilt. Like I said, it's all stitched together. There should be something for everyone in there. I've covered a lot of topics, and I've still got enough stuff. If I didn't do any research from here on out, I have enough to do the podcast for another 4 years with no research. And I keep researching. I can't help myself. I actually find it fun. So check it out. And if you enjoy it, let me know. And if with the top 5 lists, if there's anything you want to hear about, that's the whole point of this live stream, in addition to getting to chat with people and having family and friends pop in, which is great, but it's to get a dialogue and conversation with listeners. Because I can promote on social media all I want, but you can't force people to interact with you because you just can't. I try. I try on Twitter, on here, on Facebook, even on LinkedIn. I post the podcast on there, and that's a business site. But you never know who might see your stuff. You got to try. I tried to post episode 26 on a Facebook group that's like a Cape Cod history group, and it got pulled because they said it was an advertisement. I was like, all right, fine. But I wouldn't know if I didn't try. I figured, why not try? The worst thing is they pull it down, and they did, but they would have liked it. Cape Cod Coliseum, they would have loved that. Oh, well. At least with all the stress, the nervous excitement that's going on, I know that I get to hang with this guy tomorrow. So anyone who doesn't know, so he's the one sitting down. So my buddy Barry, he's basically my oldest friend, and he lives in Providence. So, I mean, COVID made it where you can't see anyone, but he's down on Cape Cod for the weekend. We grew up together, and so I'm excited to get to see him for the first time in over 2 years. But I mean, God, it's one of those things where you don't appreciate how often you see people that matter until you don't see them, if that makes sense. And I'm talking about family as well. Like growing up, I've got 6 nieces and nephews, and when they're little, they can't get away, so you see them a lot more. And then as they get older, it's with everyone. They get their own lives and they go on their way, so you don't see them as much. And it's the same with friends. I mean, my friend Barry in that photo and my other buddy John. I mean, I think I showed this last week, but I'll embarrass us all again. That was our 25 years ago, a couple weeks ago, that was our graduation photo. But the 3 of us were together all the time for years, and then we all went our separate ways. It's true. It's one of those things where my buddy John was here for almost 3 weeks to start the month off because he had to help out. His mother had surgery, so he was helping her out. And it was the most I've seen him since we graduated high school. Literally. Like, after that summer, he went off to college in North Carolina, moved to LA, and never came back. So it's always nice to get a chance to catch up. And, when you see people, the ones that you've known forever, it's like instantly you could not see them for 10 years. And as soon as you do, it takes 3 minutes and you're caught up. It's like you've never been apart. So that'll be fun for tomorrow. Much needed levity to an otherwise kind of stressful day. But, I've put a lot on my own plate with podcast and several books and a new job and a training certification and now trying to find a new place to live. So that's what I realized. I'm like, a lot of people have got it worse than me. So I started watching some, if you've ever watched Fail Army on YouTube, it's just people like falling down. Watch a few of those if you're feeling less than your best self, and that'll make you laugh. It's nothing like seeing people skateboarding and falling down to make you feel like, oh, all right, things aren't so bad. I could have fallen off my skateboard. But thank you to everyone that came and checked out the podcast live stream on a Friday evening. Hopefully you have a great weekend. Hopefully it's not too hot and humid, but it's summer. What do you expect? That's how it's going to be. It's almost time to put the AC in. I hold out as long as I can, but after this weekend, I think it might be time to shove it in the window. But go check out the podcast wherever you get yours. It's there. The logo, well, this, you can't even see it there. That's just lovely. But In My Footsteps podcast, just pick any random episode and check it out if you haven't. I think you'll like it. and then let me know. You can message me on here, find me anywhere, and have a great weekend. I will be back next Friday talking about episode 27 and previewing episode 28. They just keep rolling. Now that I'm doing them every week, there's no break, so I've always got to be ready. I'm usually an episode or two ahead, just in case something happens. At least I know I've got some in the chute, rather than like, oh man, I got to hurry up and get something recorded, and then it won't be as good as I want. So enjoy the weekend. Stay safe. Be happy. I will talk to you all sooner than later, but likely Friday evening at 8 o'clock again. Later.